John chapter 11 is where we're at today, and I really want to talk about letting God in. Let me just real quick, let me just read like the first couple verses. This is John 11, verse 1. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and his sister Martha. This Martha, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same who poured out perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sister sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. When he heard this, that's verse 4, Jesus said, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory so that God's Son may be glorified through it. And before we even get any farther, I just like letting God in. I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one. You think about it, when things are good, things are good. When things are bad, what do? It's like we're real close to God. We pray. We're just like so clinging on to God because he feels like the only hope for things to get better. Like we're going through a dilemma. It's like we're going to get through. If we're going to get through this, God is the answer. So we pray, we get close and everything is fine. Everything is good. And then all of a sudden, things start to get a little bit better, right? Feeling good, trending in a positive direction. And it's like you don't notice it, but you kind of grow this distance with God because you just don't need him as much as you did before. So it's like you still feel close to God, but you're not really needing him. And naturally, we just have that habit of not involving God or letting God in. So I read these verses and it just pops up into my head like, we have this crazy misinterpretation of what it is to see God move. You see, we know God knew that Lazarus was sick. We know that God knew that Lazarus was sick. They didn't have to tell Jesus that Lazarus was sick for Jesus to move, for Jesus to work a miracle. But still, they did so. And it's crazy because right before we find out that they sent word to Jesus that Lazarus was sick, the word tells us what? It tells us how close Mary and Martha, or Mary, was to Jesus. It says that this Mary was the one who poured her perfume onto Jesus's feet. It shows a glimpse of relationship, of connection, of intimacy with Jesus. And then the word tells us, and they prayed. And you think about that. We don't have to, listen, the fruit of that prayer was not Jesus going ahead, getting up and going to save Lazarus. The fruit of that prayer was the word that Jesus spoke into existence, which was, let me read it real quick. This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory so that God's Son may be glorified through it. And a lot of us want to see God's presence in the stuff that we're going through. God knows about your obstacle. God knows about your struggle. God knows about the circumstance. God knows what's going on. You know, our prayer is simply not, it's not to let God know. It's simply to prompt a response from God, so that God could open up his mouth and say, this will not end in your demise. This will not end in your pain. This will not end in your failure, your destruction. It's just so God can speak, because we know that when God speaks, things happen. It's just one word. He just has to say the word and it happens. See, this dilemma with Lazarus ended the moment that Jesus opened up his mouth and said, this will not end in death. The whole situation was done with, but we lose out on that because we just forget to let God in sometimes. All it takes is that prayer, that connection. It's not about God knows my heart, but rather, God, I want to show you my heart.